Have you ever received a phone call that positively changed your life in an instant? I just had that experience 72 hours ago when Steve Hardison, aka the Ultimate Coach, unexpectedly called me. And from that moment on, my life will never be the same in the best way possible. What's good? I'm Rob Cressy, and I want to share this story for 3 reasons. Number 1, it's an inspiring story filled with love, possibility, and miracles. Number 2, I wanted to capture this moment right now so you get a taste of the before, because this story is just getting started. And number 3, I'm going to share a future video of the after, the transformation, because in 10 days from right now, my life will never be the same again in the best way possible. Strap in, because this is about to be the run of my life. And let's start with a few important things from a framing perspective, because they are very important to the creation of this story, which is multi-layered, deep, and multiple years in the making. So, number 1, for those who are not familiar, who is Steve Hardison? And what I'm about to share are my words, not his. He is the number 1 coach in the world, the greatest, the most powerful. He is the coach of the best coaches in the world. He creates miracles and eats impossibilities for breakfast. And I first became aware of Steve from my coach, John Patrick Morgan, who spent 100 hours coaching with Steve. And coaching with Steve is a 6-figure investment for 1 year, to sort of put this into perspective. And when I heard that my coach coached with this guy, naturally I'm like, wow, who in the world is this guy? But then you look around the internet and you can find almost nothing. So there's no marketing, virtually no social media, and the Ultimate Coach book wasn't out yet. Side note, highly recommend you pick up that book and read it. The only thing there was on the internet at that time about Steve Hardison was a YouTube video titled TBO LIT NFL. And it was a 2-hour talk that Steve gave that changed the world and the lives of so many people. I highly recommend you watch this. And I ended up watching it twice because it was my first taste of who in the world is this guy, Steve Hardison. And if there is one person in the world that I would love to create with, even for just a few minutes, it is Steve Hardison, because I want that experience of everything that I heard from all of the people in the Ultimate Coach book and the things that I've heard from my coach about his experience in coaching with Steve. And Steve is on Facebook, and many of the people in the coaching world that I come from are connected to him. So years ago, I friend requested Steve on Facebook thinking, oh my God, this guy doesn't know me, but he's connected to a bunch of people that I know. And amazingly, he accepted, which that on its own blew my mind. And the thing that really did it for me, among other things for Steve, was all about the impossibilities and the miracles. And if something was impossible out there and he was able to create it, then of course it is also possible for me. And I loved that framing. I love learning from the best. I love outliers. I love greatness. I love winning. I love championships. There's just so much that you can do when you're around the best in the world. And with this, I wanted access to that, those possibilities. I want to experience, man, what in the world is everybody else seeing? So over the last few years, I very lightly DM'd Steve, sending, in my true fashion, an audio or a video message in these random times, essentially sending good ways, saying, hey, you impacted me in this day in some capacity. And each time he responded, I was like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this guy is responding. And I know very many people have a very similar experience of Steve. And one of the very simple ways that I would describe this is Steve is almost seen as like Jesus meets Tony Robbins in the best way possible. So that is the framing of Steve Hardison, someone that I would love to create with. Number 2, my word of the year in 2025 is fearless. And I want to embody this in everything that I do. Fearless action, fearless asks, how I show up every day, how I create. So this is coursing through me in all that I do and am. And then number 3, at the end of every single year, I write a letter to myself that I open on December 31st. And it's where I cast a vision and I state what is going to happen this year and what I'm creating. This is manifesting. This is using my imagination. This is putting it out there into the universe. And when I wrote my letter to myself this year, I had the idea that I wanted to create a Be With session with Steve Hardison, which is where you fly to Phoenix and you do a 2-hour session with him. And I didn't know how much it cost. I didn't know how it even worked. I know that he has so many people who want to coach with him. I was like, I don't know anything about this. And even when I was writing this letter to myself, one of the things about writing a vision casting letter to your future self is that you want to be able to believe it because you're putting it out there, because 1 year from now, you are going to read this thing. And I felt some resistance in myself, which thankfully for me, my word of the year is fearless, because I didn't want to put it in there and be like, man, I don't believe that I can create a Be With session with Steve. And that little light bulb clicked for me. It's like, Rob, fearless is your word of the year. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a section that says speaking things out loud. And boom, this is me speaking them into the universe. And I wrote there on that letter, and it said, I created a Be With session with Steve Hardison. And boom, I'm putting that out there into the universe. So now here we are, it's January 1st, and on my mind is getting all of these goals and this momentum and everything going in my life. And I sat there for what ended up being about 13 days thinking about DMing Steve on Facebook. And what was my language? How was I going to frame this? Because what if all of a sudden Steve was like, boom, Be With session, do it tomorrow. It's this amount of money. And it was like, wow, if I'm going to do this, I want to come in with commitment and have no scarcity, nothing, because I know what all of this looks like. I know how powerful of a creator he is. So I very eloquently created a 2-sentence DM to him that essentially said, hey, Steve, one of my goals in 2025 is to do a Be With session with you. I would just love to explore the possibilities of what that looks like. And I sent that to him on what would be Tuesday, January 14th at, 9:21 a.m. So it took me 2 weeks to create this thing because I want to be very intentional about this, right? There's energy, the universe, all of this is coming together. And boom, it's out there in the universe. And I even wrote it down as one of my wins of the day. I was like, man, I was fearless right there. So going about my day like we normally would. And I was supposed to get a haircut that day. Shout out to my girl, Tina. She's amazing. And we needed to reschedule for one day later. And it just so happened that gave me an opportunity to do a afternoon workout. So I uncharacteristically went to the gym at around 3:00 because I've got a 3-year-old toddler and he's waking up at all sort of times. So me working out in the morning is now sort of popcorn style. So getting this afternoon workout in, really important for me. And I'm being very intentional because this is my best year ever and I'm getting in the best shape of my life. So boom, I've got this. And I've got a workout, old school muscle building that I'm doing. And there's 5 different workouts, 3 sets on each one. And it's on my phone what I'm doing for each of these. So it's like 3:00 there. I get done with the first set. I'm in the second set I just finished the second of 3 that I'm going to do. And I put down a 35-pound dumbbell because I'm doing dumbbell rows on the bench, and I look and my phone is on the ground and it goes ding 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 ding, and I look and it says Steve Hardison is calling you on Facebook Messenger, and I'm like, what? So and I'm sharing with you real time what's going through my head and what I'm experiencing. So it's like, holy smokes, Batman. And I'm going to share because I took a screenshot of this. I am wearing my gym clothes. So I'm sitting here, headband, tank top, all of that right there. And Steve Hardison's calling me. So I pick that thing up and I'm like, hey, Steve, what's going on? He's like, hey, Rob, just wanted to give you a quick call about this BWIS session. Is now a good time? And in my mind, I'm like, of course this is a good time. I'm just like, this alone that he is calling me, period, and I get to have a conversation with Steve, this is the win of the century already, just this here. So as you can imagine, and I'm working out at an LA Fitness. I live in Sarasota. So I'm looking for where in the world am I going to take this conversation? And I find in the middle of the LA Fitness, there is like 2 couches in an L shape. So I just roll over there and I'm holding my phone like this, trying to be present, listen, do all of this while my world is changing in an instant. So Steve is the nicest guy in the world, warm, friendly. He's everything right out of the gate. It's personable. And it felt very natural. I didn't feel intimidated. I didn't feel awkward. I didn't feel anxious or any of these things. It was just more of you're in the moment. And I'm someone who prepares for these sort of moments. It's my podcast is called Built for the Game. I am built for this. That's one of my declarations. So with this, I was very intentional about being present, listening, making sure I didn't talk too much because I want to be a very good listener and experience this. And through it all, in a very natural conversation of where I live and sharing things about my family and my son and all of these things, I had the ability to share some of my declarations that just came out naturally in the stories that I told. Like, I am the happiest person on earth, shining my light on everyone. Or I am that I bring magic to life. And I do that every time I spray on confidence and I sit there and I think about how I have a positive impact on people even when I'm not there. And I'm visualizing speaking on stage in a sold out arena and everybody being so excited there. And boom, when I spray on that spray on confidence, I think about Steve Hardison and creating these miracles and boom, bringing that magic to life. And I share that with Steve. So we have, I don't know, a 5 or 7 minute conversation where he just shares a little bit more about the BWIS session and how it happens and emailing his wife and all of these various things. In this alone, I'm like, this is incredible. I love this. I'm just so excited right now. And he says, well, Rob, do you have another minute for me to share something with you? I'm like, yes, I 100% have another minute to keep this conversation going with Steve Hardison. And I'm going to jump around a little bit. But long story short, Steve and I end up talking for about an hour and 2 minutes. And remember, this is coming out of complete nowhere. I'm at LA Fitness wearing my gym clothes, and we end up speaking for an hour. And it was a life-changing conversation. And this is where I'm going to share the nuances and the details and the depths of this. And one of the beautiful things about Steve is there was no preconceived notion of what this was going to be. He was coming from a place of service and just letting me know about this BWIS session. And then the two of us just co-creating together just naturally opened up brand new doors of possibilities for the way that I show up and I am, the way that Steve shows up and that he is right there. And this is where I got to experience Steve Hardison and what it is like to create with him. Because, man, and I've read the Ultimate Coach book, I would guess 5 times. I usually read it at least twice a year, sometimes 3. I've highlighted the notes from it. I create myself through that book all the time because I love the possibilities and I love living that world. And I want that constant reminder of what's possible for me and to shatter my belief ceiling. So at one time, I got to see the intensity that Steve can be known for, the boom in your face. And I was like, wow. So I'm sitting here almost like auditing this from all of the things that I've heard in the book about Steve's power and the way that he communicates in the most loving way. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So I'm seeing what the master does and how he communicates here. And man, I am soaking this thing in. And one thing about me is that I've taken notes from every single conversation I have ever had, whether it is a client conversation, a pre-call with someone knowing them for the first time, a podcast that I listen to, any coaching call that I'm on. I have a second brain of 12 years of every conversation ever. And for literally the first time in my life, because I'm at LA Fitness, zero notes of this. And it's something that in The Ultimate Coach, they talk about this often where when you're in Steve's presence, you just want to sit there and furiously write these things down. But then as you evolve in that, sometimes you just stay with your state of being. So for me in this instance, I'm just consuming everything and I'm not dictating like I normally do to go re-review everything, which, side note, this is sort of one of the things on why I am sharing this here, is to document this moment in time and share the life-changing transformation that I had. So just so beautiful and so amazing. And he tells one story and it's just so good. It's just so inspiring. And I'm just picking up the inches of everything. And we're going back and forth. And then I don't know what the time was. Let's assume it's 40 minutes into this conversation. And obviously, I'm aware of this. It's just going and going and going in the best way possible. He's like, Rob, do you have another minute for me to tell you another story? And I'm like, 1,000,000% yes. There is nowhere else in the world no one else I would rather be talking to in this moment like Steve Hardison. And as you can imagine, sitting there on a couch in LA Fitness, holding my phone, there is nothing else in the world that I'm present to other than this. I left my 35-pound weight at the bench there, which I'm actually someone who always puts my weights away. So I was willing to drop that. And actually, when I got back there, someone did put the weight away for me. So thank you very much to that person. So boom, now we're at minute number 40. And he's like, hey, Rob, do you have another minute for another thing? And he shares with me another story. And this is where I get to see the beautiful, the loving, the emotional side of Steve, where he shares this story about a basketball coach who invites him to speak to his team and his thought process and how he's going through all of this. And Steve is getting emotional and there's tears flowing down him. And I'm like, this is the most unbelievable thing I've ever experienced in my life. The ability for someone to have a heart that is so big that sharing a story, he can immediately take you back to the moment on how emotional and impactful it was for him. And of course, in my brain, being a student of the game and a student of that book and a student of Steve, I know based on the book, this is the DNA of who he is and how he is. And it's one of the things that makes him so amazing there. So it's like I'm experiencing the full gamut, the full range of emotions of everything here in this call. And it was just like the most beautiful, amazing thing. And there were just so many takeaways that changed my life. But here's where the good comes in, as if everything else wasn't amazing before this. And I'm paraphrasing here because remember, I have no notes. I'm doing the best that I can to recall how the things went, the conversations, the things that were said. At one point, Steve gave me a compliment about the way that I speak and inspire people and transfer belief into others. And it's something that I'll remember forever because oftentimes, and I'm just going to share this candidly, I create a lot. One of my declarations is I am that I care the most. And there's an emoji of a heart. And when I speak it, I literally just see hearts and love going and radiating all around me because I truly do want to help people. I have a goal of helping 10 million people. And if there's anything that I can do to help another person, I want to do that. And so often on a creator journey, that one of the biggest challenges in my journey as an entrepreneur has been scarcity or not enoughness. Or for many creators, they're like, does anybody care about what I have to say? If you're seeing the no likes, the no comments, the low views, is anybody watching? Does anybody care? Side note, one of the things I share around this is there's a silent majority and a vocal minority. For any of you creators or impact-driven people out there, I encourage you, even if you are not getting the responses that you want, you are still creating a positive impact because by design, the majority of people will never say anything to you. So when Steve Hardison says to me, man, Rob, you have this special gift for the way that you speak, it was like, it was like putting rocket fuel inside of me for someone who has a goal of speaking at a sold out arena. I was like, this is completely filling me up with belief and confidence and certainty. And it was amazing. So Steve at one point says, Rob, I've got two things for you that I want to share as a possibility. And side note, if my language in the exact order of all of this isn't correct, please forgive me in the event that Steve Hardison is watching this, but doing the best that I can here. And he goes, number one, Rob, there is the Ultimate Experience event in Arizona that is taking place on, what would it be? Friday, January 24th through Sunday, January 26th, which is in like a week. He's like, if you attend this event, you will create a miracle. He's like, you need to be in that room. That is the most important room you can be in your life, because you can be the greatest coach ever. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, holy smokes. This is unbelievable. And then number two, he says, Rob, if you cannot make that happen, I want to invite you to be my guest on Sunday at the event because my wife cannot go. And I'm like, 42 minutes ago, I was just in my second set of lifting weights at LA Fitness. And in a moment, my life changed like this. So as you can imagine, my body is like warm, it's hot, I'm not anxious, but man, if you're watching your life change in an instant, there's that flush feeling, there's all of this. And it's the most amazing thing ever. But there's a but. And Steve and everybody who comes from this tree of being that we all live and breathe, I call this a mindset, a lifestyle, and a way of being. That Steve is massive into commitment. That when you commit, great, amazing, miraculous things can and will be created. I know it. I believe it. I live it. Commitment is in the DNA of who I am. It's part of doing this work. It's part of what makes us the best who shatter belief ceilings and create miracles. It is who we are. And I'm sitting there, and on Sunday, January 26th, I have two of the biggest commitments in the last years. Number one, I've trained for the last month and a half to run the Clearwater half marathon. Actively, 2 hours ago, I just ran 6 miles. The week prior, I ran 10 miles. So this is a big thing, because one of my goals in 2025 is I am running the 2025 Chicago Marathon, and I'm doing so for the V Foundation to support cancer research. So I'm raising $2,500 for that charity to run the Chicago Marathon. And man, I'm sitting here, and the way that I'm going to create momentum for creating my best year ever is by starting off running the Clearwater Marathon. Man, I love the All Day Running Company community. Jesse Itzler's there. The All Day community's there. The Build Your Life Resume community's there. I've got friends there. It is a cocoon of love. It is the pinnacle of me every single year. It's only an hour from where I live in Sarasota. I love that event. Last year I ran the marathon. This year I'm running the half marathon. So I've got that in the morning. And then 2 hours later, my wife got tickets to this wine event in Sarasota that sells out immediately. She's been wanting to go for years, and she was able to get tickets for her and I. And they're like $250 a piece or something. So this is no Catalina wine mixer. This is like Big Dog Central here. And man, she was so excited about this. So when Steve is sharing to me about how I need to be in that room at the Ultimate Experience in Arizona, I'm like, I can't believe the timing of this. How in the world am I going to say no to the person that I've essentially dreamed of having a conversation with? And he's inviting me to go to this thing and says, if you attend, you will create miracles. I'm like, wow, wow, universe. This is a pickle. So Steve shares all of this. And as you can imagine, I'm floating on clouds at this point. It's like my state of being, the possibilities, him calling, him inviting me there to be his guest or just to attend and to create miracles together. It's like, wow. And then he says one last thing. He goes, Rob, is there anything I can help you with? And this is a question that every one of us have experienced probably on an everyday or an every week basis in the world of business. You do a call with someone, or at least the way that I get down as a relationship builder, where it's like, hey, is there anything that I can do to help you with? And so often people don't have the answer to the question. It's one of the number one holes in the boat. And I always share with people in my Unlimited Coach community some of these little nuggets and tips that I've picked up along the way. You always want to have an answer to, what can I help you with? Because 100 times out of 100, someone is going to ask you that question. So you do not want to be the person, which I hear all the time, oh man, I've never thought about that. Or, let me get back to you on that. You know what? Nobody ever gets back to you on that. To not think about the thing of how someone can help you, man, that's just not being a high performer. So I sit here and I pause because all of this is going through in my mind. We are, 50 minutes into this conversation here. Steve asks how he can help me. And it never even enters my mind that I'm going to have some sort of business question or being question or anything. It was like being present in the moment. And I was like, yeah, there is something. I'm going to be candid with you because candor is one of my core values. And I was like, Steve, here's the deal. I love all of this. I am so all in. I am so honored. This has been the best call of my life. I'm just so excited right now. And we're all about that commitment life. And on that Sunday, I have 2 massive commitments, just massive. And you know what would really help me is how I frame this in a conversation with my wife. Because for me, boom, I'm all in on this, being the best version of myself, living the best life for me, for my wife, for my son, for my clients, my friends, everybody I come across. Boom, I'm all in. I can drop that half marathon just like this because I know if I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, I'm creating miracles. It's going to change my life forever. So boom, I get the massive commitment that I created with running a half marathon, but I can drop that. But you know what? The thing about my wife, because one of the things that I do from a consistency practice is I speak my goals on camera every single year, or I speak my goals on camera for every year. And then I listen to them every single morning. So this year, it's about 6 minutes and 30 seconds of me going through all the areas of my life, my mindset, my self-talk, my 9 outcomes for Historic 2025, my son, my wife, my being, all of that there. And the thing that I speak for my wife is I love my wife the most ever. She is my queen. And there's several mantras that I layer into this conversation that are part of my life every single day. And one of them I'm looking up here on my whiteboard says, lead more with my heart, less with my head. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, Steve, this isn't about me. It's about I want to be the best for my wife. And how I go about and I frame this because I truly care and my heart is that big. And this really means a ton to her. Remember the word commitment here. So with this, he goes through and he tells me this story. And this is what changed my life, as if I didn't say that multiple times already. And it was number one, how he framed the very beginning of this. And the example he gave, and words aren't exactly correct, was like, hey, honey, can I get permission to have a conversation with you about something for the next 10 minutes? And as he's sharing this, I'm almost seeing this like a circle or a cocoon around the 10 minutes in which I've been given permission to have a conversation. And man, it just made so much sense because I've got a background in improv, and the big tenet and principle of improv is yes and. So when you're on stage with somebody else, we're here together. We're safe. I'm here to make you look good. You're here to make me look good. So there's a container there. And the same is true in coaching conversations with myself or anybody who works with a world-class coach. There's an element of safety and support that is like, hey, this cocoon right here, this circle, this is safe, sacred space. So he started with that. And it sounds simple. And here's how I framed this to myself. And I even think I shared this with Steve. As a creator, the very beginning of every single video you share is so important. It's why they call it the hook, because most people will drop after the first 10 seconds if you don't get them. Therefore, we design the hook to say, boom. Like, for example, have you ever received a phone call that positively changed your life in an instant? That is how I designed the start of this call right here. So boom, that is the container, the hook, the being intentional about the very beginning. Because remember, you can fractally pull apart every single one of these things. So for me, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And then another thing, and I'm not going to share everything about this part here because there is some, there's depth and there's nuance, and I want to share the rest of the story here. But there's one word he said. He goes, Rob, I do not want you to go to this event unless you enroll your wife, unless she is completely on board with this. And you know the word that stuck out to me that, man, it's a life-changing word? Enroll. At no point, and it's a framing, right? Enroll. You're on the same page. There's harmony. There's love. And for so many of us who do this work, you know what I'm about to share, where something like this happens in your life, or maybe you go to an event and you're coming back and you see that person, and man, you are coming back like a bull in a china shop. You're like, boom, boom, boom. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. This thing just happened in my life. Blah, 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 and you just come in hot. And man, in my DNA, that's me. I get hot because I get so excited for the possibilities, for the love, for everything. But man, we got to remember that we got to create that container of permission and safe space. And when Steve said the word enroll your life, your wife, every domino in my vision went doo, 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 doo. It all made sense to me because in this vision of creating my best life and the best life for my wife and the best life for my son and the best life for my family, having all of us enrolled on the same vision together. And I'm not saying right now that we are not, but there's always levels to this game, these inches of greatness. And man, it felt so good because we can all see the vision of what's possible in our life for ourselves or for others. And man, I started to do that through the lens of enrolling. And he said that, and I was like, all of this makes so much sense. And as we wrapped this up, he essentially said, Rob, you are a great, powerful creator. You can do this. And that's how we ended the call. Well, it's actually not how we ended the call, because Steve goes, Rob, I'm going to DM you my wife's email address for the Be With session. When you're ready, just email her. Number 2, I'm going to send you the name of this guy in this video that I want you to watch. And then number 3, I'm going to, after this call, I'm going to call Judy, the organizer of this event. And I'm going to tell her about our conversation right here. And I'm going to tell her to do everything she can in her possibility to make sure you can attend this event. Boom. And that's how we leave the call. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. My life changed in an instant through all of this. And I haven't even unpacked all of this because this is like a chili that's just marinating for longer and longer. And that's how so much of this work is like. So I go and finish my workout. And as you can imagine, I pretty much turn into the Incredible Hulk after that. Goodbye podcast. Hello music. I think I turned on Levels by Avicii, where I was just like, I'm just pumping iron through the top of this roof right now. And boom, I go and do that. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to share this with some people, because one of the things in the Ultimate Coach book that they talk about is the glow or the after effect of a conversation with Steve Hardison. And I just got an hour and 2 minutes of having a conversation with Steve. Once again, here's this picture of Steve and I, me at the gym, him just sitting there. And I was like, man, my head just going. So I'm on my drive home from the gym, and it's now like 4:38 p.m. And my wife calls me and she's like, babe, where are you at? And I'm like, you will not believe what just happened to me the last hour, because it's not normal for me to be gone for an hour and a half. I was like, my life just changed on a phone call with Steve Hardison. I don't want to share all of it right now. I give her sort of the amuse-bouche, a little nibble, a little bite of what I just experienced. She's like, wow, that's incredible. I can't wait to hear this. And I get home, and remember, I want to be very intentional about this conversation that I'm going to have with my wife. And side note, we also have a 3-year-old son who is being picked up from preschool, who's going to be home. And for anybody with a toddler, you know what it's like. We go from work to toddler to bikes outside, dinner, bath, nighttime. You look up and it's 8:17 p.m. and you're like, man, this is the end of the day. And you might get an hour and 15 to yourself, of which I still want to create the container for that conversation. And I share in sort of popcorn moments with my wife the conversation with Steve. And I start with creating who Steve is, because if you don't know who Steve Hardison is, it can almost feel like you're talking about Bigfoot or something. And I want to talk about the meaning of how important a conversation with this man was and is to me, and the blessings and the miracles and the possibilities that can be created because of this. And my wife is lighting up. She's like, wow, this is incredible. So she's taking it so well. And we end up having our conversation later at night at like 8:30. And this is where I go back to my mantra. And Steve's like, you're a great creator. You can make this happen. And I lead with my heart and not with my head. And I go all in. And my wife is the most amazing person in the world. And she's like, yes, you need to go. This seems like your calling. Go and do this. And man, it was just the most amazing, beautiful thing. And I love her so much for that. And with that, I am happy, proud, and excited to say that I am going to the Ultimate Experience in Phoenix, Arizona in 1 week. And I had that call with Judy, the organizer, the next day. And Judy is unbelievable. We talked for 45 minutes. She had so much energy, so much love, helped me out. I am set. Hotel booked, flight booked, ticket taken care of, in terms of remember, this is also a financial commitment for me. This is turning this bad boy around in 7 days with all these other things. And I could not be more excited. And one of the things that Steve did is he shared a message with some of the speakers at the event there. And I'm paraphrasing here. He challenged them to, number one, enroll as many people in this event as possible to focus every single day in the highest way possible on cultivating your state of being and creating miracles every single day. And he shared that with me. And Judy said something to me that just blew my mind. And this is the bow on top of all of the bows. So when I'm talking to Judy, I share with her my experience of this call, which came out of nowhere, which you just heard right now. And I say to Judy, well, what was it like for you when Steve said this conversation that he had with me? And among other things, she said, one day ago, Steve said to us, I am going to enroll somebody in this event that I have never met before. The next morning, he received the Facebook message from me inquiring about the Be With session. That triggered him to give me a call, and here we are right now. In 7 days, I will be going to the Ultimate Experience in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am creating miracles. I know with 100% certainty, my life is going to change in the best way possible, which is exactly why I wanted to share this message with you right now. So that one, you can hear a cool story, the inspiration, the possibilities. The two, you're going to hear the word miracles a lot from me right now because holy smokes, Batman, this is a miracle. And this is a miracle among all miracles. The number of synchronicities that had to happen for all of this to happen exactly as it is, it's unfathomable. It shattered my belief ceiling to the point where there is no longer anything that I do not believe is possible because I have witnessed impossibilities right now. And I am rolling into that event every day until then. This is my priority, creating my being, my mindset, my vision, my how I'm showing up, my energy, my asks, my receiving, the how I create and share and connect with people before this event, because I know what is going to happen when I am there. I'm going to get the opportunity to give Steve Hardison a hug, and I am part of this story of this event in the power of commitment, because I am all in. And what I shared to my wife was, this is the number one professional opportunity I have ever had in my entire life. Imagine for yourself the one person in the world that if they called you, you would lose your mind. And then that person invites you to be with them at an event in 7 days. What would you do to attend that event? You would move mountains. This is what commitment looks like. Because now for me, it's almost house money because I got to experience this straight from the source. And man, I'm so excited about what we're going to experience there. But this is also a testament to what is possible when you do the work, when you show up every single day in everything I do and share. This is the DNA of why I do all of this, to help you on your journey to be your best in all areas of your life, because miracles and amazing things can and do and will happen. And I am just so incredibly excited to share with you the transformation that I experienced there, the levels, the insights. I'm creating my dreams and my vision on the highest level possible, using my imagination. My life's never going to be the same in the best way possible. I'm making my dreams happen bigger, faster. And anybody who wants to come along for this ride, I would love to have you here, because I have a goal of helping 10 million people. You listening or watching to this right now, you are a part of this. If it's possible for Steve Hardison, if it's possible for me, it is possible for you. So that's my story about how I had a life-changing conversation with Steve Hardison. This is the beginning, not the end. If you want to follow this journey, if we're not connected on Facebook yet, connect with me at Rob Cressy or Instagram or LinkedIn at Rob Cressy. I've got a YouTube channel as well as a podcast built for the game. Other than that, sending tons of good vibes your way. Hope you have yourself an amazing rest of the day.